And we're live, and hello.
Hello, hello. We are
Happy
live.
afternoon.
Happy afternoon. A little early for this live stream, but that's fun. We maybe have more energy. 'Cause
Maybe.
you haven't worked a full day, and
Well, I went
I
golfing
haven't. Oh yeah, you did go golfing
2 days in a row.
2 days in a row. Well, that's maybe energizing.
And as my old man would say, I froze my bippy off.
Your bippy. Off.
Yeah, that's what he always used to call it. Freezing your bippy
What
off.
is a bippy?
I think it's your butt.
Okay.
I'm not sure. No, I didn't really freeze my
Clarifying
butt
that.
off. I was fine. I was good.
Well, thank you for those who could join us. I wasn't really able to post much on reminders because our internet is still down at home. I think we had mentioned that the other night several times. We are down with our internet at home till Tuesday, and we're living like pioneers now.
It felt like a good time for a dry weekend and go golfing, so I didn't have to worry about
Nice.
doing the internet.
Nice. Okay, so today we are doing Snowed In finally. I know we're coming in, what, 2 weeks later for this one? A week later?
Yep, but your voice is back.
My voice is back, and I feel like I have energy to teach. So I'm going to guide you guys through this. We're going to keep this sky really nice and loose. Let's go ahead and zoom in on the painting, Paul.
Let's do it.
There we go.
Look at that.
What is going on there on the right?
I don't know.
Spinning wheel.
I'm not too worried about
I
it.
can't see the chat either.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I know. It's all right.
Oh, hi, Joanna.
Dry
Dry
like
like no alcohol?
I don't ever drink on the golf course.
Why don't you do that?
I don't like it.
Okay. Well, we have spiked coffees right now.
We do.
We went through the local coffee drive-through and added our own cocoa cream. What is this? Let's show this. From
Cocoa
Trader
cream,
Joe's.
wine,
It's really good, actually.
cocktail.
I don't think it doesn't really taste like it has much of any percentage of anything in it, but it does add a nice little, surprisingly sweet touch to your.
Oh, actually,
coffee.
it's 14.75% alcohol. Ball.
Dang, maybe I should have put more in my coffee.
We'll have some of that with a splash of coffee.
Yes, exactly. Oh, the sound is pretty low. Okay, so let's deal with that, Paul.
Sound is low. Sound is low.
Is it me or is it Paul? Test 1, 2. My volume bar is working. I mean, my.
Let me check mine. Okay, mine's working too. Okay, so you. Wow.
Yeah, Trader Joe's. Is there a Trader Joe's near Newport? I can't even remember if there's one near the coast. If not, they need to put some in there. All right, he's checking some settings on the microphone because I remember it was low in one video before and it was so annoying. I can't hardly stand to watch that video.
How is it now?
Yeah, check. Just seems quieter altogether. Maybe it's the.
No, that wouldn't do anything.
Okay.
I can turn it up a little bit more if we need to.
Yeah, why don't you do that? Because the low volume on videos is painful to watch. So you have to drive to Corvallis for Trader Joe's. Well, I guess that's a bit, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2 hours. Oh, it's better. It is better. The sound. Okay. Sweet. Yay. All right. How's that? Let us know if it's too loud or just sounds weird or anything. So.
Luckily, we have like a visual thing on there that we can kind of get a feel for.
Yeah. I brought my painting that is coming up next month. I know last time I just showed you a picture of it. So there it is in its full glory. This cute little blue jay.
I saw one sitting on the fence on my way home from work on Friday, and he looked like he was giving everybody the stink eye.
They have such pretty markings on their tails that I think they just always fly away so fast I don't really ever notice in person. But when I was looking at pictures of them, it's like, wow, these guys are like, they're meant for another planet or something. And then I wanted to show you guys, I don't have February completely dialed in yet. This painting I'm going to show you was going to be for February, but it definitely ended up with more of a spring vibe. So we're going to do this cute little trash panda raccoon in March, because this is very spring with the flowers. And this one, I wanted to keep it very, very loose rather than doing a totally illustrative looking outline thing. So I started with a black canvas because I was super just inspired by our conversation about using a black canvas. So let's put that aside. And now we can get moving on this Snowed In. We're going to get back to Christmas here. You don't move away from spring and back to Christmas. We got to slow everything down.
I'll be over
Okay.
there in just a second.
So we're going to start with the sky and the ground. And if you get the instruction sheet, you'll see that here. We put some really loose trees in the background. And you can have a look at those in this document and then see that 90% of those get covered up. So when we paint those on, I want you to not even think twice about them. You might end up with a funky looking tree. I don't want you to worry about it. We just want noise back there. We want it to look like this cabin is tucked into the woods somewhere. So let's go ahead and move that aside. I will move it over later to show it off here and there, to show the steps. Let's take our biggest brush to start. Let's do a toast bowl.
Toast.
Cheers. We forgot to do one the other day.
What are we toasting to? The holidays.
The holidays,
The
yeah.
new year coming and all that fun stuff. Because we won't talk to you guys again live until after the new year.
Yeah. So go ahead and blot your brush off on your towel. This is the 4-brush set that comes with your box. And we are going to make kind of a blue-gray. So let's look at the tone.
Why don't we ever mention a fan brush for
Oh,
painting
yeah.
trees? Is it just because it doesn't come in our
Yeah,
packet, or do
it
you
is.
guys have a reason to not use one?
No, we like fan brushes, but yes, it is.
Well, I think that's actually a more complicated question because it's hard to get the right fan brush. Because a fan brush is originally. Go ahead and start.
Yeah, let's just. We're gonna mix.
I'll talk about the fan brush in a minute.
We're gonna mix this color, which is kind of a bluish medium gray. So I want you to scrape off some white. Scrape off about half the amount of blue, half the amount of the white that you did. So like 2 parts white, 1 part blue. And then let's bring in a little bit of black at a time because the black is going to turn it dark right away. I feel like this black is already drying out.
It's because we got the furnace going.
And I'm just gonna mix and mix and mix.
You guys, if you can hear the furnace buzzing in the background, let us
A
know.
little more white back in there.
Because I can turn it off. Unfortunately, we're heating a warehouse, so it's just one of those big warehouse
Yeah, so
heaters.
if you hear a buzzing sound in the background and it bothers you, let us know. We can totally turn it off. It doesn't make a huge difference heat-wise. Anyway,
Oh, it does.
does it?
It does
Okay.
more than you think.
Okay, so this is pretty close to my color. I feel like it's gonna dry a little darker than it is on the brush, so I feel like I need to add just a bit more weight to it. Here I am making my big pool of color. And let's go ahead and mark off the sky and the lower foreground. So I want you to find the halfway point over here, thereabouts. It doesn't have to be exact. Make a little dot. Let's make a little dot directly across. And we're going to do just a gradual little scoop down. I'm using the thin edge of my brush. This can be completely repaired and changed. I just like the ground to not be perfectly flat for when we set our cabin on it later. And now you can start brushing in sloppy, floppy brush strokes your sky in. And I am going to, now that my brush is running out of paint, I'm going to pick up just a little bit of black and bring some of that in here so I get those fake cloudy shapes that we like to do sometimes, where you're just brushing different color tones on the canvas. And don't worry if yours is more gray than mine or more blue. It really doesn't matter. We just want it to look like an overcast sky because we're putting snowflakes in later. And there is a patch of where the clouds have opened up and the moon is coming through. That's always the challenge, is doing an overcast sky, but oh, I want to do a moon too, and I need to make it look like it's snowing, and we know all those things can't really come together
Sure they can.
for real.
Why not?
You can't have a completely overcast sky and the moon out unless there's a clearing.
Right.
That's all I was saying.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So now as I'm getting over here close to where this upper area, we're going to brush white over that area in a bit, but you can do it before, like, you, rather than covering the whole canvas with this color and brushing the white on top, which is what our instructions say, you can take I'm just trying to make sure my brush strokes are sloppy floppy. It's a technical term. You can take your white now and just pick up a little with your dirty brush and brush it in starting in the upper corner.
This reminds me, my
Coming
cousin
down.
just moved up to Alaska.
Oh, is that Karen?
Yep, and she just posted pictures on Facebook of the aurora borealis
lucky.
from her front porch.
How long ago did they move up there?
Just in this last 6 months or so. I don't know exactly
really?
when.
Did Ken and Margaret go too?
No, they live with Brian.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, I'm just sort of...
We're just dropping names like you guys know who they are. It's like when my grandma was alive and she would talk about all of her neighbors and she's like, you know Pearl? I'm like, no, I've never met Pearl in my life. And they're all named Pearl and Ruby and Rose.
And Greta.
And she didn't have any neighbors named Greta.
We're talking about old school names like Violet, Rose. And I chose Greta because to me, it didn't really sound like too much of a old lady name, but it also was one that I know that there would not be 20 other kids with the same name. And growing up as a Jennifer, that's, yeah, I didn't like that too much.
Who was it that was recently mentioning about Greta's name to us? I can't remember. Somebody in person, I don't remember who it was.
Go ahead and wipe your brush off. You don't need to wash it off. And if you need more white up here, you can brush some on with more of a clean brush, but it doesn't have to be totally clean. The reason I don't want you to wash your brush is I don't want a lot of water because that will start just wiping away the paint in an unattractive way. But here we have just a nice light area around where the moon is going to be.
I promise I will get to the fan brush
And then we're going to take,
shortly.
before this dries, we're going to take a little white and brush it along the horizon line. So you're creating a soft horizon line this way, which can also double as fog. In these kind of conditions, you would likely have some fog. We hit a wall of fog coming over the hill. Did you notice that? It was like clear in Sherwood, and then as soon as we get down to Newburgh, it's like, boom, here's where all the clouds are.
Yep.
So there, you've got this almost invisible horizon line, which don't worry, we're going to bring it back. But you've got that cloudy look with the nice soft fog. And because the paint is wet, it works really good. You can keep adding more if you like it even lighter. But you want to do this while your paint is wet so it can blend. Okay, now we can work on the bottom part. And I need to put my middle-aged readers on. These help so much. I got them recently. Well, I just got the prescription for them recently, and I was blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, I can actually see. I can read medication bottles in tiny print.
Without having to take a picture with your cell phone?
Yes. Actually, I'd usually hand it to Greta and have Greta read it. Okay, so we're going to mix a little more cyan blue and black into our gray, and we're going to create this deep color. So don't worry about this white, that gets added later. We want the ground to be, see, step one, look how dark that is. But it's very blue. So blue heavy, dark gray. So you don't need to wash your brush, but I had already stuck mine in the water. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Oh, you just ordered oh, what are smart glasses? You just ordered smart glasses. I gotta know. Okay, so I'm gonna scrape off some more cyan. This one we want definitely on the bluer side because it's gonna provide the base for our snow. Now you can use all this gray if you want, unless you want some for touch-ups later. And just a little black at a time. So it definitely needs to appear blue like that. I can even put more in there. But it also has to have a grayish tone. And I need to kind of mark off my horizon again. It was about middle on each side. Can be a little lower or a little higher, it doesn't matter. Scoop down just a bit. Let's brush until our brush runs out of paint. And then we're going to blend out that horizon line just a bit. So
They
see
take
'em.
video and pictures. You can answer calls with them and listen to music.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, I think Ray-Ban makes
We are
some.
in the age of
And
AI.
they're
Now
not,
I'm gonna smooth out this horizon line. See that?
Depending on
Just
the-
really lightly going over it.
depending on the brand you go with. Obviously, like most of them are fairly reasonably, they're not super cheap, but they're reasonably priced until you add the prescription element. That's one of the things I run into is there's a lot of companies that make really nice tinted sunglasses specifically for golf that are really amazing, but you can't get them in prescription. So
this can be streaky. Like you could streak on some just plain blue
hey,
here.
we're going streaking.
You can put on some just black. All this will do is add some more.
Oh, Kim's in the house.
All right.
She thought it was 6:30.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. We didn't send out a reminder today because of our internet being down at home. It makes it a little hard to do the newsletter reminder. And it kept just going down and coming back up. So I was just hoping people would remember.
Do I have a
So
minute?
glad you got to come on here. We
you have a-
just started, so you're good.
Yeah. Do I have a minute to talk about fan brushes?
You can talk about fan brushes.
Okay, so fan brushes. Great question, Joanna. It's something that we have talked about before. Jenny and I have talked about it betwixt ourselves. I don't think that's a word.
Betwixt.
Yeah. And Bob Ross does an amazing job of making them look like they're just the best tool in the world, and in a lot of ways they are.
I'm just making it a little darker down here just for my own personal, like that creates a faded look back here, and then you have darker close-up perspective. Okay, go ahead.
And but what we found is that fan brushes were originally developed to be a blending brush, and if you think of like most of them that you find in the store are very soft with very floppy bristles, so and that works really great for blending oil paints. And it's harder to find them that have more rigid bristles like what you would see Bob Ross doing. Now, the other thing in that regard is it's harder to find not just the ones with the firmer bristles, but the ones with firmer bristles that are in the price range that made sense to put in our subscription boxes.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, really, yes, you can go out and spend $10 or $15 on it. I think that's kind of the price range you'd want to be looking at is $10 to $15 to start for a good fan brush that'll do like what Bob Ross does with the trees. So that's why we've never really used them in the subscription box. And we had talked about using them in the studios, and we knew that they're kind of a delicate brush. Because they're really just like one layer of bristles, and there's no room to beat them up unless you get a really robust bristle. So that's my short answer on fan brushes. We love them, but Bob Ross does not use them for the way they were intended to be used, but he uses them in a very good way. So.
Okay, so I'm just washing this big brush off. We're going to mix a new color. We are going to make kind of a darkish lavender. I'll show that to you here. So you see that back there, and you see it over here. We do a lighter shade for the clouds around the moon. But we need to create the background trees, and if you're following along using the step sheets, we're still in step 1. We're about to convert it to this. And remember earlier I was telling you that 90% of these trees get covered, so don't spend too much time worrying about them or even thinking about them too much. We're just going to rough them in. This is nice and loose. Everything in this painting is fairly loose, and then the cabin is the one thing that's going to be in detail, and that's going to give it a nice perspective too, kind of like when you take a photograph and you've got your central focused object, and the rest of the stuff around it is not so in focus. So that's what we're thinking about with these trees.
These smart glasses, I'm looking at them. You can live stream direct to Instagram and Facebook from them.
Crazy.
So that would actually be really cool for like if you're doing your painting.
Oh yeah.
That would be fun.
Unless you're constantly pushing your glasses up on your nose.
Yeah, but still, that would be really cool. You're teaching our painting class, and you just have to make sure you're not, the rest of your room doesn't look like garbage. Because as soon as you look around, you're going to see whatever you're looking at. That would be fun for golf live streaming, though.
I mixed cyan and magenta, and it's a little bit more of a bluish violet is what I was aiming for rather than a reddish one. And then I'm going to put a little white into it because we want a dark lavender. And I'll gradually add a little more.
Hi, Adrian.
I feel like I could add a little more pink.
We've got quite a few people in today.
Yeah, that's good. I love that.
Yeah, I do think the fan brush is a really good way for making fir trees. It is almost like cheating.
Yeah. What would you call this color? It's kind of grape hubba bubba.
Hubba bubba.
And
big league chew.
I have a lot of paint on my brush from mixing, so I'm going to wipe a lot of that off. And you can see I just have a little thin layer of paint on there. There's no real blobbing paint out. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come up and make like these little stalks. So they're shrubs and fir trees, really dense. And again, this isn't going to show too much because we put this big tree over the top. And I feel like I could even wipe more paint off my brush. If you feel more comfortable using like your number 4 brush or your number 8, please feel free to do that. I purposely wanted to keep them on the looser side, so I'm using this big brush and I'm just overlapping the horizon line. Down through here gets completely covered by the cabin, so you could completely skip that part if you want, but I do think a little practice is good. So it should just look like noise, background noise, that's all we want.
Chatter.
Okay, I did mine a little taller than what's on the original paper. That's okay. I feel like mine is getting some blue bits in it. I think of these as like, they're not arborvitas, but I'm painting them kind of in the shape of an arborvita. Just shrubs. Remember, we're going to put a moon in there, so don't make them too tall. I just realized I was getting a little close with this one. Just blend them into the ground. In fact, I'm going to take a little white without washing my brush because I don't have a ton of paint on the brush. And I'm just going to brush. Okay, I wiped too much off. Actually, I've got a little of this gray left. I'll try that first. Just brush over the base of these a bit. Bring that fog up. So much of this goes unnoticed when it's all said and done. But I want to take you through all the steps. So about like that. If you want to use one of your smaller brushes to refine like the tops of these ones that will show, you can totally do that. Like I could add taller little spires. I don't know what's going on with this one. Gotta.
Yes, of course, we can always fix everything.
Yeah, for sure. A well-placed cabin will cover it all.
A foreground tree. Remember I used to call that a landscape painter's Band-Aid?
Foreground tree, a landscape painter's Band-Aid.
Yep.
So Kim, since you're here, I want to show you, while I'm waiting for this to dry a little bit, I brought my bird painting that we'll do in January. I want to say, I don't remember the date. It's like the second Friday in January, I think. And that's the blue jay. And then I skipped February. I will do February, but this is what I had done, intending for it to be February, but then I got it done and I'm like, no, that's a March painting. That is like beginning of spring right there. So this is a nice little loose raccoon.
Is that the queen of the trash pandas?
She's the queen of the trash pandas. Actually, I call her Rosie Raccoon because she's got roses and flowers in her fur.
You've gotten to the point where you named it already.
Rosie Raccoon. It was super fun to do. I had a really good time with that one. Trying always to paint looser than I usually do because I am the queen of over-defining. Now, if you feel like your trees are too dark, one thing you could do, I'll just show you this real quick. You could mix a little white into, just make a lighter batch of your lavender. And you could easily go through, maybe that's too light. I would make it just maybe a shade lighter. You can go through and tap some snow on the ones that will be visible. Completely optional, but this is great if you feel like your trees are too dark. And we are in a snowy landscape, so if they're too dark, it won't be out of place to put some snow on them, and it will lighten them up. I think these are probably going to show a little. You can see I'm being kind of careless about it. I'm not too worried about it. Now, if you are a little nervous about painting clouds and you really like your sky, it really does look overcast already. And I was saying earlier that I added the clouds. You see just these really like subtle cloudy shapes over here because I wanted to put some snowfall in. And I also wanted to put the moon in. So when you have those two things together, you need some clouds that will bring the snowfall. And so that's what we're going to do. But you can leave it out and you can put the moon in without the clouds if you want. But I want to, let's see, I felt like my purple was really vibrant and I don't want such a vibrant color in the sky. To me, on this one, it doesn't look as vibrant. I don't know, maybe they do. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix just the tiniest speck of black with some of this to get it on the grayish side, and then I'll add just the tiniest speck of white.
Break on through to the grayish side.
So what this is going to do is it's going to dull that color down a little. Yeah, that's not very noticeable for you guys because of the glare. Let me get some more color in there. There we go.
Should I turn that light down a little bit?
You could. So all I'm doing here is I'm just using very, very little paint. In fact, you don't want much moisture on your brush at all. So if you have water on it, dab the heck out of it. And then you can put in these little hazy, curly Q shapes. That's maybe a little too dim, Paul. I can't see.
Well,
I have to be able to
put it
see.
down flat so we can see.
No, it's still glary. It's just the position of the light. It's not the...
Yeah.
So can you turn it back though? Because it's really kind of dark for me. I'm just used to the other. Swirly curly shapes, everyone. Swirly curly shapes with very little paint on your brush. And just keep adding a bit more. This was this purple, but I added just a tiny dot of black and a tiny dot of white just to mute it down a little bit. Now, Paul probably knows there's probably some other color I could add in here to mute it down, probably like raw sienna or something.
Ochre.
Oh, that's what I meant, yellow ochre, yeah. Was that what you would use?
Yeah. You have to be careful though, because it wants to go green in a hurry.
Yeah, it does. So this is okay, this little corner area of undefined clouds, you've just got mainly the color going on in there. And then, but this other side, I feel like is a little more important because it's creating this break for the moon. So I'm going to just do a little tendril out here. I love the tendrils, and Paul does that in a lot of his clouds, and it's something that I really like, but I tend to make them too even, so I have like what looks like fingers that are all the same length. So I'm very cautious on the tendrils. But over here, you might switch to your number 8 brush, but I'm just going to start in the corner and come down and then across. And see, I'm just swirling that brush around. Go right over your treetop if you want. You can always paint that treetop back in if it needs to be. But I think it's going to be okay. So yeah, I'm going to switch now to a smaller brush. My number 8, I think, is a good one. Very little brush, very little brush, very little paint on the brush, you can see. And here I'll kind of curl the edges of this a bit. Okay, I have too little paint on my brush. Now I need to change that color again, just a bit. You can always just spin it around and make little curly Q shapes. And then you can take your biggest brush, because maybe that got a little too curly looking. You can take your biggest brush real quick and just smooth that out. Mainly I was just wanting to get the color on there, and now I'm just manipulating that color. And I've got a good little spot to put the moon in. You can even use your fingertip. So steer away from the idea that you need these perfect clouds. We just need shape in the sky. We need texture. The suggestion of clouds. While that dries, let's go ahead and paint the moon in. So for the moon, I'm gonna pop it right in here. And if I end up making it so it overlaps this cloud, I need to bring this cloud back in a bit probably. But I'm going to try to not do that. So see the craters on there? Let me zoom in real quick, because I'll want this to be zoomed in when I show you anyways. You covered our chat, Paul.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, we're missing all these. You're supposed to be reading these.
No, we don't. Just Joanna's. This about the long time since she have painted clouds is the only thing that we missed.
Okay, so there we go. The craters are just the background color showing through. You don't have to have those. You could have a solid white moon. I tend to like to have some dark splotches on there, and my favorite way to do it is to just let the background color show through. I feel like it's easier than painting them in later. I'm going to use, you want to use either of your number 8 or your number 4 brush. And let me grab my palette and put it in the screen. We want to pick up just a little bit of white. So see, look at that tiny little bit of white on there. A little bit goes a long way. And you can start in the center, make a little dot, and just very lightly haze that tiny little bit of paint outward. And so I'm covering up most of the background color. Oh, look at that. You can hardly see it. It's weird how it's like not in focus really.
Well, when you do this with the canvas?
No, it wasn't. I noticed it earlier before I did that.
Oh. But if you bounce the canvas up and down, it's not going to know what it's supposed to focus on.
So you can take a dot and use your fingertip too. And I just gradually keep adding more paint. And then it's still going to be kind of hazy where you can see that background color through. And then I'll create an edge using the thin edge of the brush. And just, you can trace an object too if you feel like, oh, I can't make a perfect circle. And then you can use your fingertip to haze out the edge so it's kind of a foggy moon. So like that, how it's not a super sharp edge. But then what I want to do is put some bright white in some areas. Oops. And then I leave other areas that dark color. And the cool thing with this is if you can't really nail this technique and your moon becomes solid white, you can leave it that way, or you can go back with some of this gray background color, which was cyan, white, and black. And you can add some dark spots and just sort of haze them in. But for now, just adding bright white in some areas and leaving the darker areas without extra paint on them. It's going to give you the look of dark spots on the moon. This is something that you could spend a lot of time on if you want. You can do little dabby dots like you're seeing some of the impact craters. For Christmas, my son doesn't know this, and he never watches our videos ever.
That we know of.
He doesn't even have a login. He couldn't.
Oh, that's true.
I got him a set of, they're like celestial binoculars. So when we walk the dogs at night, that's one of the highlights of his day. He loves doing that. When we go up to the park, where we have a nice clear view of the sky, he'll be able to look through those and see the moon up close. It's pretty cool. Didn't even know those things existed. I'm gonna zoom out. So here, I'll show you how, if you end up with, like this moon is a little, I don't know, it's a little different than that original. But if you want to add the darker spots in later, I just put a little bit of that color on my brush. I didn't even wash the brush, it still has white. And you can dab bits of that on here. And if the white is still wet, it works great. If the white is not still wet, let the dark color dry and then glaze over it with some white. Somehow I always end up with a face. Subconscious.
The man in the moon.
Okay, I'm not going to spend an extra second on this moon. Let's zoom out. Make sure my palette can be showing. I'm going to fold my paper towel because I keep putting my arm in it, which means my arm is going to be coated. When I painted the raccoon, I looked in the mirror upstairs and my elbow had black paint all over it because of me doing that, like leaning across my towel, being fully absorbed in the painting. Okay, we are now going to highlight the edges of these clouds. So you've got your lavender color, maybe. If not, mix some more. It was cyan, magenta, and a little bit of white. We don't need black in this one, but I'm going to add more white to some of this. Because what we want this to look like is that the moon is creating a nice highlight on the clouds nearest. So I'm not going to use a lot of paint on the brush though, because if you use a lot, you have to figure out where it's all going to go. So I'm going to wipe that off. I will zoom in again. There we go. And I'll just go along the edges here, and I can determine if I need to lighten it a little more. I think that's probably a good idea. And just do these little curved shapes along the edges. You can even do some back further here, like that helps give the cloud some depth. And we don't need to do much. We're just going to do a little bit. So I want you to use very little paint on your brush. And then I might get a little over here. So I want you to just think of this moon as a giant light bulb, and it's going to touch the top edges of some of these.
Okay, so Joanna, you said you've never heard of those. I missed what that was about.
Let's see, what were we talking about? You'll have to remind us, Joanna.
I was thinking,
Oh, the binoculars.
Oh, the celestial binoculars.
Did you say slush?
Celestial.
Slush binoculars. Yeah, I hadn't heard of them, and it's actually. So my mom is like, she's almost 80. She doesn't like getting out and shopping. Her and my dad just they live these nice retired lives where they don't go out and too much of anything. they hang out with their next door neighbors a lot. But anyway, so she always says, here's your budget for Hayden, here's your budget for Greta, find them something. And that's what I did. I found them the binoculars. So technically I didn't buy them, my mom did.
All they really are is they just have a larger diameter front lens so that it could absorb more light, but it doesn't have like really much more magnification than regular binoculars, but it's designed to absorb more light so you can see the night stuff more clearly.
Yeah, and it's Celestron brand, which is a great brand. And then they have a really good high star rating, and people had posted pictures of what, because you can hook it up to your phone if you have this special little, if you buy the extra piece that's like $20, you can
I'm surprised you
hook
didn't
it up
buy
to your
that.
phone. I didn't know if it would fit his phone, and you didn't seem to be sure either. So I was like, well, we can always
I
add
wasn't
it
worried
later.
about the phone part. I just wasn't sure if that was specifically for those binoculars.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Oh, well, we can always get it another
Yeah,
time.
we can add it later. Okay, so we've got the moon, and then it's glancing off of these clouds here. And now we're going to add the 2 trees that frame in the house. Now, if we didn't have those trees on there, it would look a little more desolate and lonely. So these kind of cozy it up a bit. And then I decorated them too, so that makes it look even more cozy. So that's what we'll do. And then after we get those painted on, we will add the cabin on. So we want to mix, what did I mix? I think it's black. Yes, cyan, magenta, and black. We want to create a dark grape color. So about equal parts, cyan and magenta. So you want to make a violet, this color again. So I'll just,
I missed what we're working on right now.
trees, the fir trees. So there, I actually managed to make the grape color that I like to use. And then I'll add some black to it. I feel like this black has a skin on it tonight. It's so weird. I like couldn't grab any. There we go. So it looks like a very, it's so dark, it's like off black. So it's a shade of black, but just not full on black. And you can, you know, if you feel like, oh, I want more color to it, you can add more blue and more cyan and more magenta. I'm going to set this aside, and I think I used my number 8 brush.
Yeah, binoculars and glasses are always a trick. Some higher end binoculars you can adjust a bit to accommodate your prescription. Like you can adjust the focus so it works more with your eyes, but most of them don't have that. That was a question.
Okay. So what we have over here is a really tall, narrow half tree or 3/4 tree. So we don't see all of it. It goes off the canvas edge. And this is shaped a lot like those pencil trees that you can order online, which I have 2 of those. And the tinsel trees that are, they call them pencil trees because they're so tall and narrow. And that's kind of the shape I was going for there, just so it's squeezed in with the cabin. You'll want to use your number 8 brush. And I do my trees a little different than Paul. You can do them how Paul does them. So Paul tends to just go for it and just start at the top and then dab the foliage in. And that works totally fine. If you're used to that, go ahead and do that. I tend to like to draw the trunk first and then put the foliage on top of and around it. And you end up with the same result basically. So it's just up to you. So dip your brush in. Let's have a look, one last look at this. Let's see how far it is from the top. That's, what do you think, Paul? About 2.5, 3 inches?
That's about 3.
Okay, so let's find the top. Come down about 3 inches, make a dot. There you go, you placed it. And then I'm gonna bring that down to about here. So you can make a dot down here too to plant your tree. And just use the thin edge of the brush and connect those. Plan on covering this trunk up. You might see it here and there through the branches, but or through the tree boughs. I like to tilt this because of the glare. And then I like to just do some dabby dots at the top because that's the pointy top of fir trees. And then you might make a little extra go up like that, so it looks like a funky little arrow. I always am just using dabbing motions. Let me zoom in. And now I will go through and make sure you dab across your tree trunk as you sort of zigzag down. Because the tree branches and tree boughs go all the way around, 180 degrees all the way around.
360.
Or 360, sorry. 360 degrees.
Let me just, look the math guy on me. Just gotta
Thank
correct you on that.
I knew it the second it left my mouth. So anyway, yeah.
It's like making trips around the moon, right?
They go 360 degrees around the tree. And I'm keeping it kind of skinny. You can add a little water to your paint if you feel like it's kind of dragging a bit. And we're going to bring this all the way down to the ground. I know Paul grounds his trees with some shading, which we don't have to do right now. We put snow on it later. And there's one down. Woo. Here, I'll tilt it. We need some kind of anti-glare. I'll just tilt it on this. There we go. Okay. There we go. Now, this one, we see a little bit more of the tree. It can go off the canvas some. You can see that mine did. And this, the height is about the same as this other one, but this one, because we brought it down further into the snowbank, it definitely looks closer to the viewpoint. So let's go ahead and you can come across here, just sort of eyeball. It doesn't have to be exact by any means. In fact, drop it down a little. And then come in about 1.5 inches. So I'm going to end up going partly on top of one of my trees there. And let's go down. How far down do we want to plant it? Right about, I think right about here. So yeah, it's about 1.5 inches in from the right side. Connect the dots. And then you can adjust if you want it to be further down. If you want it to be higher up, you'll have to cover the bottom edge with the snowbank later. But I don't think it needs to be. I don't think it needs to be exact. It's a forest and everything's natural, and you can have it be however you want.
The trees don't like stand out of each other's way.
Nope. So I'm doing little dabby dots at the top.
Oh, I don't want to place my roots here. I'll be in that one's way.
Yeah, and try to avoid, like if you get to the area where you're going off the canvas, try to avoid squeezing it in because that looks real obvious. And this is where, Joanne, if we had the right fan brush, I know you said Bob Ross uses it wrong using it for the way he does trees, but...
I didn't say that.
Oh, I thought you did.
No, I did not say that.
Okay.
I said it makes it really easy.
Okay, yeah. I think we should all buy fan brushes. Paul, I think you should lead us in a fan brush class.
Fan brush and palette knife class?
Yeah, why not?
Did
So
you-
this
did you
tree's
call it-
not quite so pencil thin.
Did you call it a temple tree?
A temple tree?
That's what Kim just asked.
Oh, nope. That works, actually. It's like a tent. It's a tent tree. This one is a little more like wider triangular shaped. And here I'm ending up going off the canvas a little. So it's not so pencil thin as that
Oh,
other.
you said tinsel tree
Oh, tinsel tree, yeah.
is what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what they're called. It's a pencil tree.
Oh, pencil.
Pencil tree, but they are like tinsel. They're made of like, they're not like the green. It's like we have one white one and one rose gold. And then I bought these LED lights, which totally changed the color of the tree. Like your tree could be any color. Like it could probably be a black tree. And these LED lights, there's so many of them and they're so wrapped around it that I could turn, if it's a black tree, I could turn it to like red and the whole tree would look red. Or purple, the whole tree would look purple. They're really cool. There. That looks like a Christmas tree. I might have you go toss my coffee in the microwave, bro.
Okay, sis.
Maybe about 40 seconds.
Wow, that'll nuke that. That
Okay,
might catch on
35. I like really hot coffee.
How can you even taste it that hot?
Well, I take a long time to drink it, so it gets cold. Where are we at? Do we add snow to these yet? Let me look. Oh, yeah, we do add snow already to these. So we'll start with this one since it's going to be more dry. And we want to use a lighter shade of that. So you could just add some white into this. And if it feels too gray, maybe add a little more cyan or magenta to it, just to make it be not so plain gray. So I added some more magenta to mine, and it actually made a really pretty color, and I think that'll be good for the snow on these. And we add white snow later, so this is just a initial highlight. So you can see it in and around. You see that purple sticking out there? That's what we're doing now. So it's okay if it mixes with the other colors. And in fact, I'd wipe a lot of the paint off your brush so you're just using a little. Zoom in. So I'm just dabbing this on, and make sure you go across the front too. Don't just hit the edges. Okay. Totally imperfect and loose, that's what we want. Let's do this one now too. Just light little dabs with very little paint on the brush. And totally fine if it mixes with that dark base color that's still wet. Yeah, Joanna says she'll buy a fan brush if you're teaching us some skills.
We'll do it.
Oh, and Kim has several and would love a class. Very cool. I will do that too. Did you boil my coffee? Okay. Keep going. I never used a fan brush much when I was painting a lot in college with oils and stuff. So for me, it's pretty much a foreign object. So I would like to learn along with the rest of you. We'll make sure we schedule a video. There'll be some landscape with trees, I'm sure. All right, let me zoom out. And now we have this great little spot for our cozy cabin to go. Now, I don't want you to fret too much about exact size, shape, and location of your cabin. Your cabin.
Love your cabin.
Cabin. We are in step 3. And you can see there, I'll zoom in a bit for those who don't have the sheet handy. If you guys, obviously, all of you have memberships. And if you don't have these, and you're doing the digital club, these are all uploaded on, where are they on our website for the
Under
members?
Art Club, it's under instruction sheets.
Yeah, so you can print them out or just
like
pull
that.
them up on your computer and reference them as you go along. But the cabin is just tucked between those 2 trees. Zooming back out. Okay. You know, it's funny, earlier I was like looking at this going, it's out of focus. And then I realized, you know, dummy, you have your reading glasses on, and they're for seeing things up close.
Well, don't know what to tell you.
I think that Trader Joe's cocoa cream is hitting me.
You can blame that all you want.
I'll blame Christmas brain. I've got Christmas brain right now. This cabin is very, very gingerbread, simple shape. I'm just going to instruct you through drawing a whole bunch of parallel lines and a triangle. And you can do it. It's so easy. It's like the way you maybe would have drawn a house as a little kid. And we just keep adding stuff to it to make it end up looking like it's a cute little log cabin with a chimney. I think the first time I painted this one, let's see, I did the chimney in a really weird spot, and I kept having to redo it. That's funny. I'm trying to remember where I put it. Okay, I'm gonna grab these. So again, we're going to do a very simple shape. Just imagine it in a series of lines and shapes. So grab either your number 4 or your number 8, whichever one you feel more confident drawing with. And let's see the height of this. It comes up, the peak of the roof is right about, like, if you go down a couple inches and over. How far over do I go? Probably 4 inches. Go down about 1.5 inches to 2 inches. Come over about 4 inches. So right about there. I'll make a mark in white. Right about there. That's about where the peak of my roof is going to be. Now, I'm just telling you these detailed numbers just so those of you who want it to look pretty close to the way mine looks, that's how it will be. And mine is not even going to be exact. I can tell already I'll probably end up overlapping this tree maybe a little more. But again, don't worry if your cabin is positioned slightly different than mine. If you've got like a narrower edge here, it doesn't matter. And we just need a cabin there. That's all you need to worry about. We're just going to put a cabin there. Just follow the steps. Okay, so we want to do a nice wide triangle. That's going to come down like that. That's going to come down like that. Try to make these about the same length. If anything, this could be a little longer. In fact, I'll make it a tiny bit longer. And then we're going to do 2 parallel lines. Let's see. So this one can be right here at the edge of this. And it's probably only about 3 to 4 inches in height. This one I actually will go in and I leave a little bit of an overhang. There we go. We don't have to connect those because we paint snow up to the bottom later. So far, so good. Okay, now this line is going to angle slightly down. So you can see it better in this drawing. You can see how that angles slightly downward. And when we pack snow on top, it's not going to be quite as noticeable. But let me show you how to do it. Slightly angle downward. And now this line should match this one. It should match the angle and it should match the length. The line to connect these should match the angle of this one. So it's going to angle slightly downward. So just don't worry about where this ends. Worry about paralleling that line, and then you can change where this ends. And we need to draw a parallel line here. Move in just a bit so you have that little roof overhang. And this needs to be about the same length as this one. And there we have a very basic gingerbread house / cabin shape.
What?
If you come teach a class in Newport, won't your vacay be tax deductible? Just saying.
Yes, actually it would be.
Okay, let's clean and dry that brush. I'm going to switch down a size to the number 4 to draw the chimney. And the chimney is relatively easy. It's just a square. So we have a wider side of the chimney that's facing us right here. So I want you to do right about the middle-ish of the house. We're going to do 2 short, like 1/2-inch parallel lines. And then we need to connect those with a line that matches the roof angle. And then we need to make a 3rd parallel line over here. It can be shorter because we want this to kind of angle slightly downward. So you've got your little box. And then did I draw? Yes, I drew the snow top. So you can just basically extend it. You can even round the edges out of this because it's snow on the top of there. So we drew a box and we drew a box on top of it, the exact same box. It's just, this one has rounded edges because it's going to be snow. And the cool thing is when we start filling it in, you can correct little things that you might see that would be wrong. Like this one, I see this is maybe leaning in a little bit. Or you can have it be a completely whimsical cabin. Like think about Tim Burton's drawings and movies like Nightmare Before Christmas. He always has really whimsical houses that would not stand on their own, but they look so cute. Okay, we need to connect this. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we've got this goes back here. I'm actually going to bring this down just a little bit so I have a little more of an overhang. And then you just have this little triangular section there. So we're seeing the underside of the roof overhang there, which we'll paint all the color in later. I think that might be what we do next. Yes, we need to make a dark brown. We're going to mix yellow ochre, magenta, and black. So we make an orange first with your biggest brush. Oop, still have grape color on there. I'm running out of room on my palette. You know what? I think this is dry. I'll do it over here. Okay, so I think I need to zoom out again. So yellow ochre, which we haven't used yet, magenta, make an orange. This is going to give you a nice warm brown. And then just gradually add bits of black to it until you get a nice dark brown. It's really dark. And later on, we highlight the cabin a bit with a lighter brown color. So this can be really dark and it can look like your cabin is almost black. And the reason we want it really dark like that is because when we start adding the wood texture in later, that's going to help it pop. And I'll show you that wood texture that I'm talking about. So you see it there? So you see the little highlights where it looks like logs. We need a dark base in order for that to show up. So make a really dark, almost black color. It was magenta, yellow ochre, and black. And then let's just start over here. Fill it in about to the ground. If you feel like it's going to help you mentally to paint this, fill this in, to close these lines off, you totally can. You don't need to, but if you feel like that's bothering you, then please draw a line across to connect, like, you know. You can make the sound effects too. And you want to cover up these white outlines with this dark color, but you don't need to cover up the rough ones because they get snow on them later anyways. And then if you need to use a smaller brush to get up in here, feel free to do that. Any of these little areas, like I've got this little overhang here. You can leave the little white outline along this bottom edge too, because that gets snow on it later. Tilting. So just give it a nice base coat. Don't worry about covering up this line because we know where it's going to be, because it's going to be right at the edge of this.
Yeah. Joanna says, I can see how we could make small changes to the painting and make it fall, spring, summer, etc.
Yeah, you're right. This could be our little getaway cabin. There, I straightened out this pole over here. Bob Ross always put a little shack on all his paintings.
A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, yeah.
Hey, we still have to watch that Bob Ross movie. with Owen Wilson.
Well, it's not really a Bob Ross movie.
Kind of is. I totally forgot about it. I don't know that it did super well in the theaters.
I don't think any films do really well in theaters anymore, honestly. Doesn't seem like
I
it.
don't know.
Because they go straight to digital so soon too, or some of them have release on both at the same time.
You can make the bottom of this house a little longer than maybe feels comfortable because we come in later with the snow drifts. And if you make it too short, then you don't have much house showing. So maybe make it a little longer than feels comfortable because it will get covered. So that's going to glare on there until that dries. But we're going to let that dry and we're going to paint the chimney. I had a special color I mixed for that. So it's a red brick color, yellow ochre, magenta, maybe a very small amount of white. And we want to paint the front edge of the chimney. See, this one's facing the moon, this one's facing away from the moon. So this is going to be a lighter shade, this is going to be a darker shade, being away from the light. So let's go ahead and take one of your smaller brushes. I'm going to use my number 8. See how that goes. And I have this base brown. I'm going to add a little more cyan or magenta. I keep always want to call it cyan. I'm going to add a little more magenta and yellow ochre to that. I want it to be more red, so I'm going to add more. So this is the color, let's see. I need to make it a little darker. So if you need to add more black back in it, you can. This is the color I want to paint the edge that's facing away from the moon. So right here, go ahead and cover up your white outlines. I need to go with a smaller brush. I don't know what happened to my little itty bitty. Must have rolled under something. Oh, there it is. Zoom in. So where did it go? Here it is. I'm going to cover up this line. And now we need to make this side a shade lighter. So this is really close to the house color. It's just a tiny bit more red. And for the other side, you could try adding a bit of white to this, to some of this, to lighten it up. I'm going to add a little yellow and a little more cyan. So it's like brick getting moonlight on it, so it's going to be lighter than actual brick would be. Terracotta, that's what color it is. Make sure you cover your white outline here. We don't want that showing up. And there you go. Looks a little more 3D. Cool, cool. That is needing to dry a bit. Let's see what we do next. Step 5 is what we're on. Okay, great. This is what I thought we did next. We are going to paint the white snow on the foreground trees. You can use your number 8 or your number 4. Just let that cabin dry. And you don't need a ton of paint on your brush. Are you reading the comments?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you are. Okay, good. Just checking. You're getting into the zone of painting, and you're being very quiet.
Well, I find like these little cabins like this, one of the most difficult things we ever paint.
Really?
Yeah. Huh. Because it's hard to make them look like they're not about to fall over.
Okay, so you can leave some of your purpley bits. You know, I love using the term purpley showing through. So you don't need a lot of white.
Hey, what you do with your purple? No, never mind.
Weirdo. And we're just dabbing some snow on here. So this cabin should look like it's kind of starting to fall over.
I think I heard a 17-year-old audibly wince.
All right. I don't have a lot of snow on the brush. Just kind of loosely painting this in. Make sure you go across the middle. There we go. We need that heater back on. My feet are getting cold. We watched Home Alone last night. I never get tired of that movie. I love it so much.
You still haven't watched the 6th one.
I don't even remember the second one. I only ever watched the first one.
It's the only one you need.
Yeah. Yep. It was such a fun movie.
The 6th one is just bad.
Did you watch it? Really?
Yeah, Greta and I watched it.
That's funny.
Because instead of the kid being like, obviously it's not, instead of the kid being like he's protecting his home,
It's not even Kevin McAllister, is it?
No. But it's more like this is just a sadistic child trying to torture people more than protect
He's a
himself.
future serial killer.
That's totally what it seemed like.
Crazy. So John Hughes, who did that movie, he also did like 16 Candles.
No, we haven't watched Die Hard yet, but maybe we need to do that tonight.
Maybe. 16 Candles and Uncle Buck, right? He did Uncle Buck, didn't he?
Ferris Bueller, I think.
And they're all filmed in that same neighborhood, the same neighborhood that Home Alone is. It's like he found the neighborhood that he wanted. I mean, it's a pretty nice neighborhood. There, my trees are bedazzled. Well, they're not bedazzled yet. Bedazzling will be putting the little lights on them. How's my cabin doing? Still pretty wet. So let's see what we can do right now. Once the cabin is dry, paint the roof with white, bulking it out to look like a thick layer of snow. So, dry.
So he wrote Mr. Mom, National Lampoon's Vacation, 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, Weird Science, Pretty in Pink, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Some Kind of Wonderful, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, She's Having a Baby, The Great Outdoors, Uncle Buck, Home Alone, Career Opportunities, Dutch, Curly Sue, Beethoven.
I remember the Beethoven movies and Curly Sue.
Yeah. Baby's Day Out. He did the redo of Miracle on 34th Street, 101 Dalmatians, Flubber, Made in Manhattan. A lot of these are Drill Bit Taylor.
Oh my gosh.
a lot of his credits are like TV movies based off of other and The Breakfast Club Live.
Funny.
No, we haven't watched Die Hard though. We need to watch it.
Yeah, for sure. So the cabin is not totally dry, but it's not so wet that it should smear into the snow we put on the roof, in theory. I might eat my words. Mine's kind of wet right there. This is where I would get a hairdryer.
Will it hurt it?
Will what hurt it? The hairdryer?
No. If it's still kind of wet, will it actually hurt it?
No, not really, because you can always go back in once the smear, if you get a smear of brown into the snow, you can go back in with white later after it dries. So this roof is going to start off white, and then we're going to shade some bluish purple, like periwinkle color on this edge so that we have the moonlight hitting there. But let's just start with, how's the chimney? We painted that later. Let's start with this area here, which is away from the wet cabin color.
So John Hughes died at a really young age, actually.
Oh,
He was only 59.
wow.
He died in 2009, which is why we don't see wonderful John Hughes
Darn.
films anymore.
So I'm going to use my biggest brush, but plan on probably doing some small areas with the littler brushes. I'll click in a couple notches. I have plenty of white. I knew I'd be needing a lot of it. So go ahead and just start by filling in, and then we'll bulk it out and make it look like there's a thick pack of snow on the top.
Okay, so Kim did her homework,
Okay?
and her two favorite paintings of 2023 were, for my paintings, Vanishing Horizons.
Oh yeah, that's a good
And
one.
for yours was the starfish painting.
I did love that one. I totally forgot about that. That was using the other colors that we used to use. Yeah.
That's funny, I don't even remember painting the starfish painting.
You zoned out.
No, I do remember it now.
It's the one where it's like splayed on a rock. I remember I painted that long ago, and we kind of did a vote for what painting do we want. And I can't remember what painting won over the top of it, but then you guys really wanted the starfish too, so I added that back in.
I want to say it was the sea otter.
Might have been. I don't remember. It's long ago. So I'm just using the chisel edge of my big brush and coming in to the edges, knowing that we can always switch to that littler brush to, when we bulk things out, I think that's the way to go, is to switch to the little brush. Go ahead and get that in there. And now, while this is wet, I'm going to shade in, I'm going to mix up some purple, maybe a little more blue toned. If you look at my original, it's kind of a bluer toned color. Maybe throw a tiny bit of black in there. And I'm painting this on top of the wet white paint, which lightens it, and that's what we want. And I'm just shading this area until I get out about halfway-ish. Maybe a little more than halfway. And you can keep adding layers. And you might have to wait for this to dry a little bit if it's peeling away original layers. Keep this color handy though. I'll probably have to remix it because I mixed such a small amount. Because we'll need it to shade some of the other parts on the roof. And I'm using kind of long brush strokes here. You can see I have very little paint on my brush. And I'm just brushing it outward this way so that with the long brush strokes so it doesn't end up looking too choppy. And I'm going to set this brush in my water, pick up my number 8. And I'll use this color again to come along the edge. Actually need to mix up just a bit more. And I added a tiny bit of black to tone it down. And this is drying pretty good, so I'm going to add just a little white to part of this. Wipe off paint. I'm using the thin edge of the brush and just coming along here, just kind of thickening out the snowpack a bit on this side here. You can always trade off color by going right into the white and letting the two wet colors mix right on the canvas. Just gonna smooth that out. And then I'll want to use that color along this side, right on top of that white line that we originally drew. Yeah. It is definitely going to be in the shade away from the moonlight. And I'm going to add a little white on my brush and bulk this out a little so it can be lighter on the top. And then as it gets away from the moonlight under here, it'll be a little darker.
Was the otter this year?
I don't remember. I'll have to look.
Joanna asked.
I did love the otter and the jellyfish, which was probably the year before or so. But going back like further, I loved like the colorful elephant. That one seemed to be really popular. I think one of my least favorites I ever did was the swan painting. And I remember you didn't really like yours that February either.
So I have this thing with February
Sakura
paintings.
Something.
Yeah, I have this thing. Actually, I have this thing with holiday paintings outside of Christmas and Halloween.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to paint this side of the chimney snow with the darker bluish color. And then I should be done with that color for now. We're going to bulk everything out with white. But go ahead, Paul.
I just was going to say it's really hard to do other holidays.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'm washing my number 8 brush, gonna dry it off, and now I want to go for pure white. And we want to fill in this part of the chimney, which is getting full exposure to moonlight, so it's going to be really bright white. You can really round this off if you want. And then I'm going to raise the roof. Raise the roof a little bit here.
Wow, you just went there.
You can raise it through here too. Like the roof can get a good bit of light on it, so it's okay if it's really light coming through there. But yeah, we want to raise the roof to just add that thick pack of snow. And then along here, you can see I've got a real sharp line, but this one's more rounded. And see how it rounds along there? That's what I want to do. So just come out as far as you want. I mean, within reason. Within reason.
Jenny,
Yeah, so many compliments on the swan and the swans in the lake. Oh, that's good.
Jenny, do you have a favorite of all time that you've taught for Go Box? Like, do you have one that jumps out in your head without a lot of thought, or?
I really love the Light Keeper from, it was, I think, November 2021.
Yeah, I think so.
And it was the barred owl sitting on the lighthouse.
Mm-hmm.
And that one came with a template for drawing it out, so that made it a lot easier for people. I'm sometimes a fan of including the templates. You guys notice I don't include them a lot. And part of the reason is I think it's really important for you guys to learn to draw basic shapes. Like, I'm not going to sit down and be like, let's draw a fox and go through, you know, drawing a fox without breaking it down into very simple shapes to make it feel easier. So I think learning to draw is a really important part of painting. Okie dokie. Time for some windows. This should be dry enough. Hopefully you have some good shading going on. And where are we at? We're still in step 5. Okay, we're going to use our number 8 brush and white paint to create windows in your cabin. You might end up with more or less than I have. You're the architect. You do it however you want. I have 2 kind of taller, narrow windows, and then these ones are a little shorter and wider. And then I had this little spot. And this was one I thought would be really fun to put a round window up there. So maybe, I don't know, do I deviate? What do you guys think? Let me know. Should I do a round window? I'll start on the square ones down below. And if you guys think I should do a round window, I absolutely will. So white paint. And keep in mind, this is, in fact, you might, before we do that, let's just use some raw yellow ochre and a real light line along here to mark off the edge. So then we know where our windows can go and where they can't go. Okay, now white paint. Yeah, Joanne, I remember you joined right around that time. You started buying kits from us. I totally remember. Okay, here we go. Trying to place these. I'm just going to draw a little line here and a little line here and connect the tops. Then you want to space it out enough. I have a little wider area on this one than I did on my original, so I could do bigger windows or I could do a row of 3, but I'm just going to do slightly bigger windows, I think, a little bit wider. The nice thing too with doing them this way is if you mess up on your windows, you can always just let them dry and then go back to your dark brown, cover them up, let that dry, and then, you know, it seems like a lot of steps, but that way you can get some windows that you like. You can always sketch these out with pencil too. The pencil lead should show up against the dark brown of the house. And you guys might be more comfortable starting it off with a pencil sketch. Yeah, so mine are slightly different sizes. Let me make this one a little wider. Happens. The architect of this cabin was drunk. Okay, now over here, I want to match the top of the window lines with this. And then your sides are going to match these lines. And your bottom line needs to match this one. So if you've got a slight angle, you need to do a slight angle. Fill that on in. Now the reason we're filling them in with white is so that when we get the yellow glow in them, that it's really going to pop. On top of this dark brown, that yellow would be too transparent and it would look just muddy and not very pleasant. Wouldn't be pleasant lighting. Wouldn't be cozy. Okay, well I haven't heard, but I'm going to do a round window, like an oval. So up in the top, I've got a little attic window. And I have a little square, but this time I'm going to do an oval. Nice. Now those need to dry before we get any golden glow on them. And you're the architect. You design it.
Well, wait a minute. You just said the architect was drunk.
You're the drunk architect. Design it to look like a little gingerbread house. Why not? I'm just cleaning up some edges real quick. Okay, we are now on step 6. Now we get to create the snow drifts in the yard. So this is going to take our yard to a different level. Now, let's have a look at this. Let me zoom out. Zoom out one more click. There we go. So our moon is going to light up a pathway through here, and it's going to be darker here where the house is casting a shadow. The tree is going to cast a shadow. Now all of these shadows, I pretty much left the base color in there, but I did haze in a little white so it didn't look like such a giant block. And I think I can tell on this one too, I touched it up by coming in with some more of this background color to shade as well. So we'll just snowbank up to our house. Yeah, we are going to need to mix some of this color because we need to create a snowbank up against this side of the house in that color. So let's do that real quick. Let's mix the color. This color here, it was cyan, white, and a touch of black. Clean that brush. My paper towel's getting really
Need a
covered.
new one?
Yeah, I actually would like another one. There's some over on the desk over there. So
Yep.
white, cyan. I used quite a bit of cyan, if I remember right. And just gradually add in a little black until you get something that is as close as possible to your base color. There we go. That's pretty close. Close enough. And I'm going to wipe a lot of that paint off. And I'll come across the bottom edge here. Just keep in mind the way snow kind of banks up against the house. And this will help you cover any weird edges. Don't worry about that. We're going to do that. We're going to fix that up with some white. Oh, thanks. So now wash your brush. It doesn't have to be 100% clean, but you want to get most of that dark color off. So yeah, all I did was bring some snow bankage up to the house. So it's going to shorten the house. The cabin. And let's take a little white on your brush, not a ton of paint. You can see I don't have a thick layer, it's just a little bit. And we'll come in along here. Don't do that part quite yet. I want my brush to run out of some paint first. Go ahead and let that brush run out. You can bring some little zigzaggy lines in here. If you feel like you want to use a smaller brush, then you can pick up one of the others. But I do want to have some light color snow coming into this area too, but it's going to be mostly dark. So now I can come over here. Now that I have less paint on my brush. So you don't want to leave white off of this area. You just want to have less white in that area. And we're going to build up more white through here. Oh, you need to shake the mouse, Paul.
Wiggle it.
So every time you dip your brush into the white paint, kind of brush it off into this main area, which is hit by the moonlight.
Oh, Marlene's here now too.
Hey, Marlene. Oh, it's football day, isn't it?
Who won?
So see how I'm leaving little patches of dark? What that does is it makes it look like there's little valleys and hills. You can flirt with a little white over here. Just
Hey, White, how you
nod.
doing?
Flirt with a little. And this is how I like to do snow. I like to just gradually build it on a dark base and create my own little hills and valleys. Let's have a look at the original real quick. So you see, it is dark over here, primarily under the house, but I did carry white over, just not as much. And I'm gonna bring some white into this area, just knowing that I'm gonna go back in and shade it just a bit. Reshade it under the tree. Any area that you want to particularly stand out, like I've got a nice little spot here. You see that bright patch of white? That just looks like it's a hill. It's kind of fun to do that, where you want the snowpack to, like maybe you've got a hill you really want to make it stand out, to give it some more depth. And your edges can be soft. It doesn't have to be a sharp line against the house. You can have a nice soft edge if you want.
So how do people get into this house?
The door's over here.
Through the chimney?
Yes, chimney only. Maybe there's a little hill over here that the moon is able to hit because the house shadows back further. So that's always kind of fun to do. Keep the bright white along the top edge of the hill and then just let the paint sort of run out of your brush. And because I'm using such little paint at a time, I can definitely see the canvas texture through this, especially like when you really zoom in close. See that? And that's fine. I'm not going to worry about it in this case. If it's something that you really don't like, you can just keep layering some paint on, and you can layer it with your dark color that we just mixed up. So like I could just layer some of that in there, let it mix with the wet white, and that completely covers the canvas texture. But this is one of those where you see it from a little bit of a distance and you really don't notice it. So it's not that big of a deal. Now, if you feel like you want to refine this tree shadow, you can bring a little white over here. See how that looks, and if you feel like you need to shade some more of the dark in there. I'm using the number 8 brush. Footsteps on the roof. Oh my gosh, you watch from the pool. That is so fun. We've lived in such like temperate climate our whole lives, Paul. It would be so weird to live somewhere where it's just sunny a lot of the time.
Yeah, it would be weird.
So I added some shading, just kind of refine that area. You can just kind of go back and forth between the white and the dark until you get it how you like it. Like, you can always bring some white over here. It's not going to be a problem because there's cuts in the tree boughs where the light would shine through. And this is something you could really spend some serious time on if you wanted to. Just refining this whole patch. And if you need to reshade this area, you can. If you need to bring some more white over there, like I feel like I could have, it's pretty plain, like this whole triangular area is just all one color. So what I would do in that case, I might pick some white over here and then a little bit of my shade color, kind of blot those together so it's a little bit lighter than this base. So that way it's still looking like it's in shadow, but I could bring some bits of snow through there. Even wipe off more paint. There we go. Yeah, I really like the way that turned out. So here's my original, and this is the new one. You can see I have a bit more white on here, so maybe I'll lighten this area some more. I think I was just going a little too easy on it. Just this main area where the moon is going to hit, but don't just stop. You want to just kind of stretch it out and let your brush run out of paint. That's going to make it look a little more natural. There, nice and bright. Looks like a storybook illustration. Oh, let's see. Mark said hoof prints or sleigh tracks on the roof. That's cute. I like that idea. Good job, Mark. You can design our next painting. Moving was quite a transition. Every day is sunny, so we felt that we had to be out doing something because in New Hampshire, that's what we would do on sunny days. They were sparse. It was, I can't read. I'm far away. It got to be, we'd pray for rain so we didn't feel guilty staying in and watching movies. Yeah, I can identify with that a little bit for sure. The time we were on the East Coast was in November, and we were in Boston, and it was a cold like I've never felt before. It was so cold.
That was crazy cold.
Bone-chilling cold is what I would call that. And it was windy, too, so we were like
well, that's why it was
instantly
so cold.
chapped our skin.
It was super dry and windy, and there was like, it wasn't wet, but it was, I mean, there was no snow or anything, but it was just so windy.
Cool. We are now on step 7. We're getting close. What time is it? Okay, good. We're getting close. So we're going to paint over the white windows with yellow. While the paint is wet, streak in a little magenta around the edges. So that's going to give you what looks like, let me zoom in here, like there's things in the house. Like this little bit of magenta here, it looks like a shadow. Maybe that is a cabinet or something, or maybe over here is a Christmas tree. So I do like bringing the warmth in, but it's just a tiny bit of magenta. So let's do this a little at a time. Number 8 brush, take your yellow and brush some yellow in here. Let's do these 2 windows real quick. And then I'm not even gonna wash my brush. I have very little paint on here. I'm gonna dip it in magenta. Wipe most of the magenta off. Oh, I think I have a little blue or something on my brush. I need to clean that up. Yeah, my water is really blue. You might change your water, guys, before you do the windows. So then I'll take and water coming out. Brush a little magenta around the edges and kind of blot it in. You want it to blend with the yellow. You don't want a ton of magenta. So here's, like, I put in too much. So here's what I would do in that case. I'm just going to keep blotting it in, moving inward. I'll do that over here too. And at this point, I would wipe my brush off, wipe all the magenta off, grab some yellow and glaze over that. So then you get that warmth, but it's not like pink. It's orange. That's what we want. So I'll grab a little tiny bit of magenta. I'm just going around the edges of the windows, here and there. You can kind of shape something out, like maybe there's a person here.
Like Michael Jordan on a train track?
What?
Like a Michael Jordan cardboard cutout on a train track?
That's right. Home Alone. There, nice and warm. I love that. Now I will get yellow on this one. I'm not really washing my brush in between because I'm using such a small amount of paint. It works. And then I'll take a little magenta. You might need to wait a minute or so if it's not really adhering good enough. But you just want that nice warm glow. And you don't need a lot of yellow to cover these. There's no need to do a thick coat. It's not really going to do much except extend the drying time. Now I'll pick up my magenta and bring that in. Here we've got another person standing. Creeper. And again, I could take yellow and sort of glaze over any spots that maybe appear a bit too red. This one, I feel like I put a little more yellow on. Okay. We're going to let those dry. I just needed to look up what color we used to create the siding on the cabin. And it was the dark brown color from earlier. So you make your orange first. Clean your brush. I'm going to use my number 8 brush. I love the leg lamps. Oh, a leg lamp in the window would be so good. I looked them up. I wanted to buy one this year really bad. But it was like when you're spending so much money on Christmas gifts, it's like adding more. Like we always buy decorations every year. And I think the leg lamp was like $200. Maybe I should just get a miniature one. So I made my orange color.
I'll just start doing the crosswords and I'll just win one.
Okay, fragile. So we're gonna make our dark brown color again, about like that. But we wanna add more yellow ochre to it so that it stands out against the dark color. So I'm not even gonna darken this as dark as I had it, but scrape off a good chunk of yellow ochre. We'll see, this might be too light. I guess I'll have a look as soon as I get this streaked on there. I have a lot of paint on my brush from mixing. I'm gonna wipe that off. Okay, so here's my very streaky mix. You can see it's not 100% mixed. It's got bits of dark and bits of yellow ochre. That was the orange made with yellow ochre, magenta, and a little black. So it was our base cabin color, but then I pulled more yellow ochre into it. What? What are you laughing at?
Nothing.
I'm going to do a parallel line along here. So this is like a trim, and I'm barely touching the canvas, just using the thin edge of my brush. See that? And now I want to go across here and in between each window with just little broken up lines that look like either siding or logs. You can create a trim piece along here too. Try not to overthink it. Very hard to see unless I really come up here. Now I could wash my brush, especially on this side, which would be getting more light from the moon. And I could use just plain yellow ochre. Ooh, that's really bright. Let's wipe some off. For any spots that aren't quite standing out enough. There. So not totally lined up lines, but enough that it gives the suggestion of, hey, this house is not just plain brown, it's got some texture to it. So I'm finding just a lot of yellow ochre with a tiny bit of black is working really well. I don't think we need to mix up any crazy color. And then this side, you start at the top. I'm going to tilt this. I love like pioneer history. Remember I got all those books from your parents?
Yeah.
They're the Time Life pioneer books, and I love them so much. But as a kid, I read a lot of, here, I'm going to do a trim piece down here real quick. As a kid, I read a lot of the Ingalls books, Laura Ingalls. And I remember reading all about how Pa built the cabin. It's like so crazy how it all came together with no floor. It's just like a bunch of sticks at first, and then like getting glass windows was a really big deal. It's kind of cool. They were roughing it. And they lived in a house that was made out of mud, like on the banks of Plum Creek. That's what that book was called. It was really cool. I love that history. Okay, so I know it's maybe a little harder to see because of the glare, like there it disappears, but if I zoom in here, you can see it is there. And anyone looking at my painting in person would see the texture of the logs. Oh, I love Little House on the Prairie. Yeah, I have Audible, and I got all the books on Audible, I think last year, and they go fast because they're quick reads, but the narrator does such a good job, and she like sings some songs. It was really fun. Some of my favorites. I would read the whole series to my 4th graders. Yes, I'm teaching 1st grade. I'm thinking of reading them the first book. That's cool. That's super cool. Okay, so we've got our logs. We'll be done here in 10 minutes or so, I think. Don't quote me on that. Maybe a little longer. Let's see here. Okay, we're going to add some bits of white to the windows. So if you look, you see all the little bits of white in the center. So that gives you a more direct light source. And it also helps make the windows not look like they're just all one color, which I know we already have the magenta in there, but this is going to give it some fun brightness. So you want to clean off your number 8 brush. And take some white, just a little white on your brush. You don't need a ton. Dab it in the center, or I'll zoom in. I know this is like a zoom in, zoom out painting. Zoom in. Dab from the center and work your way out, almost like you're kind of doing this like sort of kaleidoscope pattern. You're not seeing this. This is privacy glass. You're not seeing what's going on in there, but you kind of are. This helps warm it up a lot. Get some up here too. Well, I think it really helps the warm parts of the window stand out. Because white isn't ever going to warm anything up. Now the key here is like next to no paint on your brush. And work from the center out. And if you feel like you ended up getting too much white, you can always come back in with a little yellow. They are partying it up in there. We're going to mix white and yellow, and we need to reflect the windows onto the ground. But I did the white and yellow so that it doesn't turn too green, because we've got a lot of blue going on down there. And it can be a lot or a little. I just kept it kind of subtle. So you can really see here where I've reflected both the upper window and these two, and then these out here. It's really easy to do. You'll use your number 8, and you want to mix white and yellow. You don't need a lot. So you want to aim for like a lemon buttercream color. Just enough white that you're not going to get too green down here where you put the yellow reflections on the ground. Now again, like with all things, once we have a huge percentage of the painting done, you want to use a small amount of paint with just about everything. So wipe off your brush and just come right under. Let's do this one first. Come right under here. I even have too much still. And just haze in a little glow I just jiggle it back and forth and try to make it pretty close to the same size as the window. And this one too. Such a small amount of paint. And then up here, we'll just jiggle in a little ovalish shape. And down on here. Make sure you follow the direction of the hills when you do this. So if you've got a little like slant going in there, try to follow along that. How about let's get a little of this color. This window here is going to reflect some light, some glow onto the tree here. I might add a little more yellow in there. So just around the area that would be affected by that window, so like under some of these branches maybe. Okay, now I want to add some window trim. It's subtle because the house is so dark. Zoom in there so you can see a little window trim. It's about the width of that number 8 brush, and it really cleans up and closes off the windows. I know this feels like it has a lot of steps, but that's how we make it look good. So black paint, you don't need a lot on your brush. And you can just use the thin edge of it so you get a nice clean line. You can always build from there. If it feels too dark, maybe mix a little yellow ochre into it to lighten it up just a bit. But the house base is really dark, so it's not going to stand out a ton. This window is kind of bulging out on the side. I need to clean that up. How are you doing over there, Paul?
I'm doing good. Jenny.
You're doing some icicles.
I'm doing good, Jenny. It's an inside joke, guys.
Is it?
Yeah.
What's the inside
The
joke?
Jenny thing. The Jenny Paul thing.
I don't know.
You know how you say my name and I always say, why do you say it that way?
Oh.
So I started
That's
saying,
right. We do that at home.
You do that at home.
Okay. There we go. Now I'll outline these. Trimming them up. Looks good. I added a little water to my black. I probably forgot to say that. It seemed like it needed it. Mine's been sitting here with this heater, and I think it's got a skin on top. So I poked through and then just added a little water to some of the paint. Anytime you're outlining, I know you guys have heard me say this repeatedly, but having the extra moisture in the paint really helps a lot, and you don't have to break up your lines so much. Ooh, this one's going to be a little extra challenge. There we go. Well, it'll do. Nice and trimmed up. So if you need to touch up any snowbanks or shading or anything like that, now would be a good time to do it. I think I'm pretty good. There's one little spot here I maybe wanted to bring some color into. Last step, which like always has a few extra steps on it. Finishing steps. Okay, let's see. We want to paint the window panes. Now those are kept very simple and very, very light, and they're wobbly. You see that? They're very wobbly, and I mixed water with my paint. It's black, and I used the smallest brush, and I didn't bother too much with making them perfectly symmetrical. Like, look at these. They're all bendy, but it still looks like a cute painting, a cute little cabin. So I don't want you to concern yourself too much with making things too perfect. That is one thing that will make the painting not fun for you to do if you're stressing out about that. So I mixed some water with my black, I'm going to actually wipe my brush off and then redip the tip of the bristles. You only need a tiny, tiny bit of paint on the top. And I just, I'm going to divide these into, I've got room to do 3 really fine lines. And no, they're not perfectly spaced, and that's totally cool. And for your lines that go across, you'll want to parallel this line here. So I have room to do maybe 2 here. Probably had room to do 3, but I botched it a little. 1, 2, 3. Totally not perfectly spaced. Totally not bothered by that. We're viewing it through a snowstorm. This one got a little thick, but oh well. And then over here, I just did a plus sign. So 1 down the middle, divide it in the middle vertically. I'm not using much pressure at all on my brush. That's how I'm getting such thin lines. And then you're going to divide it in half horizontally, unless you want to do different types of window panes. And then to give it the cuteness feel, I did a little crisscrossy design up here. And I could, if you have a really big window up here, you could divide it in half so that it opens up in 2 little windows. That's cute. Woo! Got that part out of the way. Here's my original, you can see. If you ended up with this and it bugs you, like if you ended up with a thicker line like I did, let it dry completely, and then just touch it up with a little white and yellow and see how that goes. You just need the suggestion of lines. Let's get the fireplace smoke. That's all done with fingertip. Get to finger paint, yay! So I'm just gonna dab my finger in a little bit of white, and maybe dab it off on your paper towel so you just have a little bit, maybe even more. Start with less, you can always add more. And I just sort of circle my finger out. Do it again until I have it how I want it. If you really don't want to touch your finger to the canvas, you can use the number 8 brush. Tiny bit of white, dab it on there, wipe the brush off, and then just swirl it. Either way works. Need to bring it right down to the chimney itself. Smoking out the place. Hey, nice warm fire going on there. My gosh, Paul.
What?
Paul's going really extra and adding some fun stuff. So that'll be fun to show.
That's what I was giggling about earlier.
Holiday lights on the house are the second to last step. I think it's that and then the snow. Yeah. And then we sign it. Okay. Holiday lights. Let's have a look. These are done in yellow, and you can mix yellow and white if you want a lighter look, but to me it looks like I used mostly just yellow. And I just did lots of little tiny dots using the handle of my smallest brush. I scalloped them here so they're kind of draped, but along here they're just scattered all over right along the what is this part of the house called? The eaves? Mm-hmm. Yeah. The eaves! And my tree over here kind of felt like it was next to the house, but in this one it feels behind the house. So I didn't add a yellow glow to the branches, but you could, because maybe there's windows over here. So keep that in mind if you want to add yellow glow like this one has from the windows. You can do that. But I'm going to pick up my smallest brush, dip it in the yellow paint, maybe dot it off a couple times. And I just sort of put them all over as I'm going up the eaves. And if these feel not quite the right color, mix a little white with your yellow. But I think this color is standing out nice and bright for me. Let me tilt that. Oops, I ended up with a exploding light there. That's all right. And now I'll drape them. I can hear Greta's music. Trying to figure out what it is. Greta's listening to earbuds over there. I think it's Rob Zombie. That's funny. Oh, look how fun that is. And now you can add little lights all over the trees if you want to. And you're right, Joanna, this could be different seasons. You have to tell me if you liked painting this or not when you guys have done it. See if you want to attempt the cabin again. Now, doing it with snow is a little extra than it would be, well, maybe, I don't know, painting an actual roof would require a little extra painting than doing just snow, so who knows. Now, the cool thing here is if you want to reflect the actual lights onto the snow, that's totally optional. I did do it on this one. You can see them there. And the way I did it was, first I get most of the paint off the end of my brush. You can do a few little dots and then you can just smudge them back and forth with your finger, or you can tap this to your finger and just use your fingertip to dot little light reflections that are kind of smudged out. And you can do that over here too if you want. Totally unnecessary. But then, I think that was the very last step. Oh, snowflakes. I knew there was something else. So I have the snow just starting in from the left side and working its way out over here because we've got a clear area up here where the moon is. And it's done the same way as the holiday lights. You want to wipe off the handle of your brush and use white. And this is just like maybe the snow. We had a break in the snow and now it's just starting to fall again. I really hope we get some snow this year badly. The reports have been all over the place, like maybe or maybe not. Of course, I think that would be pretty hard to predict.
You've lived in Oregon long enough to know that they can't because of the...
Too close to the sea?
There's too many variables. They basically know about 48 hours.
Yeah. It's true.
At least in Portland.
Yeah. There we go. Time to sign. You can add as much snowfall as you want. And what color? Maybe I'll sign it with cyan. Water down your brush when you sign. You guys have learned that by now, probably. And there we go. Oh, a moss roof in summer and spring, or a thatch roof would be so cute. I did a painting once for my mom with a thatch roof little cabin, and I love that painting. I can't believe that I was so young when I made it, and it turned out so good, and she hangs it up over her fireplace every spring. And it's just one of those where you're like, wow. I see a lot of paintings I did at the same age where I'm like, ooh. And then that one is just like, I think it's because it was made with love. That's why. Okay, I'm just moving some stuff out of the way so we can see Paul's masterpiece. You want to throw that in the trash right next to you? This too? here we go. Ready? Drum roll, please. Look at that. I like the angle of your cabin. You kind of did more of a downward angle. Was that intentional?
I was just trying to do the best I could.
Oh, okay. Well, that looks cool, though. And then we've got Santa stuck in the chimney. And you put white lights or something on your, or is that moonlight? You didn't do lights on your trees.
Snow and.
I like the way that this was done. The reflection of the panes. That's a little extra.
I needed to go back and add a little more white to the moon.
Paul's looks like the snow is melting. Oh, totally.
Could be,
Yeah.
yeah.
Getting watery. I like all the pink you have up here and the moon just sort of peeking through the clouds. So when you guys do that, I know a lot of you guys don't paint along. Keep that in mind that you can totally have just a peekaboo moon. I could have done that here with mine, but instead I chose to make the moon a little smaller.
The reindeer flew off for support. They went back to get the elves to come and help Santa.
Get a pry bar.
Yeah.
And you've reflected the bright spot of the moon there.
Yeah. The moon needed to be re-brightened up now that I see it on the monitor.
What made you think of doing Santa?
Oh, I just was thinking of that people were talking about reindeer on the roof and stuff like tracks, and I thought, oh, let's just do Santa's boots.
And he also did icicles. You can see those there. The icicles are probably a little like, they're not as noticeable as they were before you put the lights on.
Yeah.
The lights just sort of complicate it all. But
Yeah.
they are there, and that's an idea. Paul and Santa, they both look awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, very different versions of the same painting, which is great. I like the wet snow look. You're right. It looks like it maybe rained.
Maybe.
It's icy.
So one of the things I noticed that you and I do that's different pretty typically
The glare on
is you tend to go for black to darken things.
Uh-huh.
And I tend to go with making more of a purple.
Well, aren't you special?
No, I just was saying. Okay, fine. I will never make comments again.
Just joking.
But anyway, that's one of the things that when our paintings look different a lot of times, it's that little difference.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So that's why your sky is like purple.
Yeah. So, all right, let's bring it back.
Bring it back.
We're back.
We're back. And we are ready for the holidays. I think this is our last painting of any kind, live or otherwise, before Christmas, because Christmas is just in a week.
Week from tomorrow.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
Yep. I don't think we have any in-person stuff between now and then. I just want to bring something up. We had a subscriber ask about some listings, and we have been starting to reorganize some of our listings on our website and stuff. So if you're having trouble finding a video, is asking for something different than what you have, just let us know. But it's just because we're just reorganizing things to make it easier to find stuff.
Yeah.
So
we're always here to just chat on our website. And like I said, they come to our phones when we have internet at home.
well, they come to our phones anyway, whether we have internet at home or
yeah,
not.
it'll save it there. So when we come in here, we can absolutely do it. And Kim, I will ship out your We Three Gnomes tomorrow.
Yep, tomorrow's going to be our last day probably of shipping, with the anticipation of things getting there before Christmas.
Yeah.
And even that might be a push, because if you're on the East Coast and we ship tomorrow, you might be 5 days, so it might come the day after Christmas.
Kim, your gnomes might be New Year's gifts.
Yeah.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll ship them tomorrow and keep our fingers crossed.
Yep.
Of course, it all depends on if you have time to paint before Christmas, too. So
Exactly.
might be something you can do with your grand kiddos.
Yeah.
So, yes, happy holidays. Merry Christmas to everyone. I hope you have wonderful, wonderful time spent with whatever it is you do, whether you spend it with family or friends or painting, whatever you want to do.
You know, I had a funny thought about all that.
Okay.
What if we all just treated each other the way we do during Christmas? Except for how you treat retailers. But most of the time, we always treat our family with more grace and stuff during the holidays than we do the rest of the year. And
I treat my family good year round.
Yeah, but maybe people should work on that. Christmas shouldn't be a special feeling. It should feel that way all the time.
It should be Christmas every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I hope Santa visits all your houses and
I'm sure he did.
we all go into 2024 very positive and make 2024 an amazing year.
Yeah.
So
Well, every year is an opportunity to improve on the last year.
that's right. We're turning the page. Turning the
do it.
page of the book. It's a blank book, and we can make it how we want.
There we go.
All
Well,
right, guys.
Merry Christmas, Happy
Merry
Christmas,
Christmas.
everybody,
And we will see you later.
bye. End.